Having some technical issues there. So looks like we're back. I think we'll keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully I had lights turning off and I don't know what was going on. So I think I'm here now, and we'll find out if this continues. So we'll just keep going. Today we're going to be talking about remediation, specifically in Adobe Captivate. And for those that aren't aware or understand the word remediation, remediation is, I like to think of it in at least e-learning, I like to think of it as going to summer school. So not to suggest that, there's sort of a bad connotation with remedial work. It's, in the situation where you go to summer school, it's for remedial work because maybe you're not capable of doing your math course in the regular school year, so you go to summer school. And I think we can blame sort of those party movies from the 80s, like Summer School, for that bad connotation, because it usually involves teenagers who would prefer to be at the beach and partying and getting drunk and so on. So that's not what we're talking about. Today we're talking about giving our learners another opportunity to learn. And so one of the issues that comes to mind is that I like to do little checks along the way as I'm going through my training course. So after I've taught something, a particular concept or part of a lesson, what I want to do is check with my learners to see how they're doing. And I use knowledge checks, or you can use regular quiz questions if you want to score them to see how they're doing. So you ask them a question based on what they've just learned. And remediation is very simple. If they're successful, you let them move forward. If they're not successful, if they seem to be struggling with the knowledge or skill that you're teaching them, you take them back to where they learned it earlier, or possibly to another part of your e-learning course where they'll have another opportunity to learn those concepts or those lessons. So let's of course bring up the chat window here. We'll just make sure that chat's working well. Marie is with us, at least that much I can tell you, which is good news. And maybe what I'll do, Marie, is just share this with let me just get a copy of the URL here, and I'm just going to go over to the YouTube channel here, because it seems like, Marie, you're the only one with us today. Now, I didn't plan this one weeks in advance like I do usually, but I just want to make sure I'm giving everyone an opportunity to join this morning here. So I'm just going to put up a members only post here. Here's the link for the live stream, and we'll just paste that there to make sure that everyone has access to that, because of course, yep, perfect. Yeah, it looks like we've had someone else join too as well. So I was a little worried that it would just be myself and Marie, but that's okay. So we're good to go here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to close out the stream. Well, I'll just minimize it here, and I'm going to share my desktop with all of you. And I've got a couple of project files. Now, for those who are members of my YouTube channel, which should be just the people watching, you'll have access to these files afterwards. So I'm going to make them available after the course or after today's session is done, so you'll have an opportunity to download these examples. The video one, I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that one because it includes a video there, but certainly an example of slide remediation here. So I'm going to go open up this start project here. A lot of times when I do training, I have sort of a before and after type situation here. And maybe what I'll do in this case here is what we'll do is I will bring the completed version up first. And I'm going to need to make sure that it's complete here. So let's just take a look at a couple of things here. Bear with me a moment. Yeah. Okay, so let's preview this project first here. And you'll probably only be able to hear the audio through my microphone, but that's okay. You'll still get an idea of what's going on here. So let's preview this project in HTML5 in browser.
Bringing your concerns to the attention of people who have harassed you is usually enough to stop the offending behavior. It's not uncommon to have some apprehension about speaking with someone who had offended you. Here is a simple 4-step process to help make it easier. 1. Describe the behavior. Be specific and tell the person exactly what offended you. 2. Express your feelings using I statements. Don't just say the behavior was wrong. Tell them how it made you feel. 3. Specify the appropriate behavior. It's essential to explain how you expect them to behave moving forward. And 4. Identify the consequences. Tell them exactly what steps you will take if you do not see a change in their behavior.
So now it brings us to our first question, and this is a sequence question. I don't normally use these. I probably, if I had more time, I would have probably done this as maybe a drag and drop, drag the steps into the appropriate order here. But it's pretty straightforward here. Let's get this wrong. I'm just going to put these in sort of a wrong order here. That's definitely wrong. And I'll submit, and this is where I'm giving them 2 tries to get it right. Okay, well, that's not right. Let's try maybe moving this one here and hitting submit. Okay, that's incorrect. I've run out of tries. I should update this because I did the video first. Let's review. It should say the lesson once again, and click anywhere to press Y to continue. And what it will do is it will return me to the slide that we just saw with those same, the same lesson points, but there'll be a difference this time. This time there'll be a return to quiz button, which I just used a question mark icon. So I'll show you what that looks like.
Bringing your concerns to the attention of people who have harassed you is usually enough to stop the offending behavior. It's not uncommon to have some apprehension about speaking with someone.
So I'll just mute the sound for right now. So this is exactly the same slide. The only difference is because we are in the scope of the quiz, which Captivate knows, there is this question mark icon, which I added myself, and I wrote a little advanced action at the beginning or on the loading of this slide to do this sort of remediation. So now I can look at this and say, oh, well, it's describe the behavior, express your feelings, specify behavior, identify consequences. And there goes my video lights again. We'll have to look into why that's happening. That's pretty weird. But anyway, you guys aren't seeing that. So let's go ahead and return to quiz. Now, if I simply go next, which I won't do, or forward, I would not be able to answer that question because I've answered it already. But if I use this button, which has that little advanced action behind it, it'll work nicely here. So let's do that. And now we have the same question again. I get an opportunity to put this in the correct order. And what we want to do is describe the behavior, express your feelings using I statements, specify the appropriate behavior, and identify the consequences. And now I can submit, and I get that question correct. And this is really useful because you can do this with knowledge checks. You can do this with all sorts of things. There's a number of ways that you need to do it. I'm using it with a final quiz question here. And if your goal is to get people to not just pass a quiz, right? Because that's nice, but really, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get people trained in the knowledge and skills that they need to perform their job. Part of their job in this case, of course, is the simple idea of just being a good employee, I guess. I'll just bring the chat up here and we'll just check real quickly if there's any questions so far. And there's not. So let me go back to the desktop here, and I'm going to exit from my browser at this point. And we can see here what we need in this case. And I just lost my... Wow, that's really weird. I just keep losing my... What am I losing? My mouse is fine. It's like my USB is going down repeatedly. But anyway, it doesn't seem to be affecting the live stream, I hope. So we'll keep moving forward here. So what do we need to do this? Well, let's say this is the lesson that we have here. I've added this return to quiz button, and the on success for that is simply return to quiz. Very simple. You're going to use this instead of jump to next slide, or go to next slide rather, because you want to return to the quiz. This is specifically an action that's designed for remediation. So this will always return you to the quiz here. Now, if this is the first time that I'm viewing this slide, I have this little execute advanced action that's going to run, and I'll just show you that. It's really simple to write. In fact, let's go back to this version of the project here. This is the one that doesn't have the work completed, and I will do that right now. So I'm not going to save those changes. So on this slide, we need to make sure that this is not go to next slide, which is the default, but return to quiz. We also need to, I didn't get rid of remediation here. Well, that's okay. We'll go in and I'll show you how that's done. It's a very simple advanced action. What we're going to do is we're going to do a conditional advanced action. So we're going to check this check mark off right here. And we're going to perform the following conditional check. So if CP in quiz scope, this is a special variable, a system variable inside Adobe Captivate that checks to see if we're within the final quiz. If we're not, we're going to do the else statements that are down. But if we are, so it's just simply a value of 1 or 0. If it's 1, you're in the quiz. If it's 0, you're not in the quiz. And really, literally, the only thing that determines whether you're in the quiz is if you've visited a quiz slide so far. So if this is the first time you're arriving on this slide, CP in quiz scope, that system variable I mentioned, will be equal to 0, and we'll go down to the else statement, and that's where I'm hiding that little SVG icon. You won't see it, it won't be there. But if we have visited a quiz slide already, it's going to show, and that's why it appears on the second time that we arrive on that slide. And then, of course, it simply goes to your quiz question. Now, there's something you need to set up here as well. In the quiz panel, this one isn't set up already, but I'll show you what you would do. You'd set up your question as you normally would, correct captions, number of attempts and things like that. On success could be go to next slide, which of course is our quiz results slide in this example, but it could be other questions as well. And we'll give them 2 attempts, which is fine. And the retry message, and then failure messages. And in this example here, we've customized the failure message so that it explains what's happening. Normally, a failure message would be merely, you've got this incorrect, click anywhere to continue. Well, in this case here, incorrect. Let's review the slide once again. And it would be click anywhere or press Y to continue. And then instead of going forward, in this example here, we're going to, in this case, jump to a particular slide. At least in this case, it's slide one, but it's the slide wherever that knowledge should have been gained the first time around. So you basically do those three things and you're good to go. Let me just align this back up to same size, same position here. So in summary, on this particular slide where you're going to be taking people back to remediation, you need a little advanced action that will either show or hide the return to quiz button, depending on the circumstances. The quiz button, of course, it needs to be return to quiz, not go to next slide or jump to a particular slide. If you were to simply jump to a particular slide, and this is that particular slide, what would happen, of course, and let's bring this up so it's a little bit better fit here. What would normally happen is that the quiz would be locked because you've already made an attempt. But because this is return to quiz, it will open that quiz question back up and give you an opportunity to answer it again. And then the third piece of this is making sure that your remediation action associated with running out of tries, or last attempt as it's called in Adobe Captivate, will take you back to where they can learn that lesson. So real straightforward, real simple. Really just a couple of very small steps here. Let's just go back to our chat view here, and we'll see if anyone has any questions about that. Again, I've lost my lighting, so it'll just have to be this way. I'm not going to try to do it again. I should probably plug those in instead of relying on a USB port on my laptop, especially when my laptop is being overtaxed as it is, which tends to happen with the live streams. So Marie, can you just give me, I just want to make sure I'm still broadcasting. Can you let me know if you can still hear me or see me, or anyone else that happens to be on the live stream? Marie's the only one who's said anything today, so I just want to make sure that we are in fact broadcasting here. Maybe I can double check that by going to my channel here. I'd hate to be talking to myself for the last 20 minutes. Yeah, I'm starting to suspect that I'm broadcasting to no one. That's a drag. Oh yes, no, you can. Okay, that's good. So, I mean, that's a really cool process, and I think it's a really great way to do e-learning, because of course, when you are giving opportunities for learners to be successful, that to me is the real goal of training, is not to fail or pass people, but rather, oh, okay, you're struggling with this, or you need to look at it again just to reconsider a few things, or just simply try again. But with, of course, a little extra instruction doesn't hurt. And there's no reason why you couldn't do something like this with a completely different slide that maybe goes into greater detail that the learner might need. You don't have to take them back to the original as well. So the other example I wanted to show today, it's almost the same, but it goes to a whole cooler level, if you will. So let me go back to my desktop view here. I'm just going to minimize that, and we're going to bring up the video remediation example here. So it's almost the same tutorial. And let's just, so I just need to change this here. So here's what's different. Let's bring up the completed version of this. I was going to strip away the extra stuff, but I don't know if I did that, because it was late last night that I did this. So I'll show you this example here. So let's do a preview. And this is taking advantage of some of the new features in Adobe Captivate 2019, specifically interactive video. Not so much with overlays, but I'm taking advantage of the bookmark feature. And you'll see what I mean in a moment here. So let's go to HTML5 in browser.
Sometimes employees think that by ignoring cases of discrimination or harassment, the problem might go away. If you are the victim Unless there is an immediate danger to your health and safety, taking the time to document the situation is an excellent first step. There are 2 reasons why you want to record the incident. The first is that we tend to forget details as time passes. There might be relevant details for investigators that may fade away over time. Secondly, if you decide not to take action immediately and the person commits an additional offense, it's easier to show a pattern of behavior if you have documentation that supports the previous incidents. Documenting the event doesn't need to be overly complicated. Bringing your concerns to the attention of people who have harassed you is usually enough to stop the offending behavior. It's not uncommon to have some apprehension about speaking with someone who had offended you. Here is a simple 4-step process to help make it easier. 1. Describe the behavior. Be specific and tell the person exactly what offended you. 2. Express your feelings using I statements. Don't just say the behavior was wrong. Tell them how it made you feel. 3. Specify the appropriate behavior. It's essential to explain how you expect them to behave moving forward. And 4. Identify the consequences. Tell them exactly what steps you will take if you do not see a change in their behavior.
So now we have our question where we're checking that knowledge here. And I'll just randomly put these in wrong answer. Careful, I might actually get this right. Let's put that in the right spot there. So that is incorrect. We'll hit submit. We'll try again. We'll drag this down there. Hit submit. And we've run out of tries. So we're going to be brought to the video again. But here's what's cool. I'm actually not going to bring you to the whole video. I'm going to bring you to just the portion of the video where we talk about this 4-step process here. So let's watch as I click anywhere to continue.
Here is a simple 4-step process to help make it easier. 1. Describe the behavior.
So I'll just mute that and point out that now, of course, my return to quiz button is already available. And once I feel that I have this down, I'm looking at the steps, I'm listening to the narrator explain them, I can go ahead and return to quiz. It'll bring me back here, and now I can put them in the correct order. So in this case here, D-E-S, I'm just did this for myself here. I just remembered what the first letter of each answer was. And sometimes, hey, that's all you need, right? And then submit. And of course, I get the answer correct here. And this is done a little bit differently. Let me show you what's involved with this. In this case here, we have our video. I'm going to bring the timeline up so we can see that here. And the video goes into a lot more detail. It includes a lot of examples of how you might find yourself in this position and maybe what you should do before you confront the person who has committed the offense. So I've done several things here. You can see if I just enlarge my timeline a little bit here. Here is the SVG icon, and that is set to return to quiz as we've done before. It's currently not visible in output, but similarly, I also do that little on enter execute advanced actions where I do a little remediation. So you would open up your advanced action window to write this advanced action. And in this case, I'll just select it from here. And it's, again, the same structure as before. We're going to check to see if we're in the scope of the quiz. So CP in quiz scope. This is a system variable. So you won't be typing that in. You'll actually be selecting it from a long list. And one of the little tips I can give you is if you know you're looking for a particular variable that involves the quiz, if you type in the word quiz, you'll see a list of system variables that include that, and it's actually the first one up here. CP in quiz scope, we're checking to see if it has a value of 1. If it does, we're going to show our little return to quiz button, but if it does not, we're going to hide our little return to quiz button. So that's real simple there. And straightforward. Now, on this slide here, I have pretty much the same question as before, What's different here is instead of jump to or go to a particular slide, I'm jumping to a bookmark that I've called Remediation and continuing to play, in this case, the video or the project, if you will. Now, how do I create that bookmark? Super easy. I just simply go to the slide that contains the video and play along the timeline there until I find the spot just before she or he, actually it's she, starts talking about this 4-step process. And then I simply click on this little plus icon, and that allows you to insert a bookmark. You can give it a name. I called the previous one Remediation. A little tip about this as well. Let's make Remediation 2, just as an example here. Hit the Enter key to make sure it accepts that. I find that without that, it doesn't work. So I'm going to delete that there because I've already got one. And then, of course, once you have a bookmark added, you can use that for navigation purposes in this case here. So on our quiz slide, we have jumped to bookmark Remediation. And of course, that allows us to do the same thing, but not jump to a slide, but jump to a bookmark within a video there. So that achieves remediation another way. And quite frankly, I think it's the cooler way. If you have an opportunity to make a video such as this for this topic here, I highly recommend that. Incidentally, if you're interested, how I built this video is I did a couple of things. So first thing I did was I went to Well Said Labs, and I use Well Said Labs. Full disclosure, they give me a free account in exchange for providing them feedback on their services and also promoting their services. But, I don't believe in promoting something unless it's something I would use anyway. And so in this example here, once I sign in, I have access to literally the world's best text-to-speech technology, because I can literally type in some, I spelled literally wrong, sorry. No, it was missing a comma. Type in some text-to-speech and then render it out and download the resulting file. Right, so I can click create, and and I can of course choose different character voices and so on, and then I can play that back.
Literally type in some text to speech and then render it out and download the resulting file.
And it's really good. It is certainly the best text to speech that I've heard in a long time. And I'm a big believer in their product. I wouldn't promote it otherwise. They don't pay me to say it. It's just, it's something that I use. And again, because I'm an influencer, they do give me a free account. But they don't pay me to say that. It's just truly what I believe to be true here. And, as you can see, I've used it a number of times to produce many different e-learning narration files there. It's the only text-to-speech I'll use now at this point. I wouldn't go back to the stuff that's built into Captivate. The other thing I used, of course, and I don't have an affiliation with these folks, but I do believe in their product, or in this case, service. It's called Storyblocks, and I just simply searched for videos that seemed appropriate for this. So I was able to find videos that showed, there's the video that I used in my video. I added the narration over top, and I edited this particular video in Camtasia, which is, again, my preferred video editing tool. It's what I use to make all my YouTube videos. I do have affiliate links in the description of my videos, so if you're looking to do some of the things that I do in a similar way, you can check those down in the description of all my videos there. But I was able to select these various different videos, piece them together in a way that made sense with, the narration that I'd written. I always start with a narration and then I uh, go from there. So now I have a little tutorial that I can add to my, in this case here, my anti-harassment and anti-discrimination e-learning course. So, but it's a neat way to do remediation as well. So let me go back to the chat here. See if we've got some questions here. So Marie says, cool, when I have done quizzes in interactive videos, there seems to be alignment issues in terms of audio being interrupted by quiz questions in the middle of a sentence. Yeah, so if you're using overlay slides, Marie, you've got to really be careful with where they're positioned on the slide, or on the timeline rather. Because of course, the trick is to find a spot where there is no audio. And then what I do in a lot of cases with the knowledge checks, because you can't actually add a quiz question to to the overlay, to the interactive video. But what I'll do is create a knowledge check, and quite often, if I need narration to go with the question, use the narration of the overlay slide itself. And that way you can have a good example of that. By the way, let me share my screen again to answer that. We'll come back to the chat in a second here. I'm going to close all the projects down. If you are working with interactive video and you're having a little trouble with it, a good resource is to open up this under the resource tab in the welcome screen in Adobe Captivate. Open up this project here and kind of reverse engineer this. So here's the video slide here, and they have several overlay slides, and you'll see of course that these overlay slides have that narration included. Worth checking these out. And if you just see how these are built, you'll understand interactive video a little bit better. So let's just go back here. Nick is asking, what kind of interactions do you prefer for remediation? You can use just about anything, really. I mean, multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank will work. You can do that. The thing about remediation is, you're checking for knowledge, and then you're going back and giving them the tools that they can use. A good example of this is I did a course well, it was actually more helping a client who worked for a big office chain. And when I say office chain, they sold, paper, furniture, computers, office equipment, things like that. And so they had sales training, and what they did is they had a series of videos, and you'd choose your own adventure essentially. So you'd pick a choice like, oh, go to the customer and say, how can I help you? Which may not be the best thing to do, because most people have a defense mechanism against that sort of approach. So you would see that video play out, and then you'd have an opportunity to try again. You take them back to an earlier spot in the video and give them an opportunity to try again. Try again is really what we're doing here. It's just a little bit more elaborate and giving a little bit of navigation with that as well. So anything where you're basically asking the learner to provide feedback or their opinion or their answer or what they think the answer is. And then of course you can jump back to an earlier spot in the course or an entirely different spot. It doesn't have to be the same slide over and over again. Remediation can be, oh, okay, well, since you had trouble with that, let me explain it a different way, and then you move forward. And that would be a slide that wouldn't be part of the normal navigation, or a video that's not part of the normal navigation. Yeah, so Marie, some of the content, like the video that I made, that was, again, I showed you, story blocks is where I get that. And they're pretty reasonable, because if I was to, and I've considered this, right? Like if I was to purchase 3 different videos, because that video was made up of 3 different stock videos, you know, Adobe stock would be, I think, around $80 per video. And so that would have cost me 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, what, $240 or something like that. So that is rather expensive. The Storyblocks account, I think, is 100. What is it? I shouldn't say before I actually look it up. And the way I look at it, I'm a freelance instructional designer like many of you. You know, if I choose to select, I used to have just the image account. And let me just switch to my desktop view again here. Billing and subscriptions. I thought there was like a, yeah, so I'm on the unlimited all access video, audio, images, $360 per month. I just upgraded, so I only had to pay part of that for the year, but I'll probably keep it active, because again, you know, the ability to make your own little videos, even if it's stock videos with your own narration, it's going to be a lot more dynamic. So I got access to video, audio, images, $360 for the whole year. That's a bargain. And when you look at this, I always look at these as, you know, like I'm looking at it from a business expense perspective, right? Because in this case here, you know, when I consider that, like I look at my annual revenue as a freelance e-learning designer, developer, teacher, whatever you want to call me. You know, and oh, and incidentally, Marie, I just saw your last comment there. They do HD video, but they do 4K as well, which is helpful. So, you know, the real advantage of having a service like this, when you consider, you know, what I earn for the whole year compared to how much this costs me, you know, it's just a business expense. I pass on that expense to the customer. You know, obviously, if you work for an organization, you're going to want to convince the organization to pay for that sort of service for you there. So Nick is just saying, thanks, cool example with the video remediation. Your guesses with bookmarks, again, the bookmark is where you're going to jump to. So again, you always want to pick that spot where maybe there's between 2 sentences or before a next topic starts and things like that. So Marie is getting story blocks through eLearning Brothers. Okay. Neat. I like the color scheme. Yes, it was overlays. Oh, smart. Oh, yes, I will. Thank you. Johnny is saying he's writing in Spanish, and I'm not a native Spanish speaker here, but his next question is, I need some help from you when I include web parts in my capture project. These elements overlap everything. I don't know how I can correct that. I'm not sure what you mean by using web parts in your capture project. If you could explain it maybe a different way. So let's put remediation aside and maybe address Johnny's, I'm assuming you mean software simulation. So the one thing I will say about software simulation is that, like here, for example, I have my laptop over here to one side. I have a much larger secondary monitor in front of me. And quite often, when I'm doing software simulation, I would prefer to use my larger monitor. And let's say I'm teaching or capturing a software simulation for a web interface or web tool or something along those lines. And the difficulty is that Adobe Captivate's software simulation feature does not work very well on secondary, well, basically on anything other than the primary monitor. So you want to make sure that if you're capturing content using software simulation, you want to make sure to do that on your primary monitor. So open up whatever tool you're trying to create a software simulation of and perform that on your primary monitor, which for me would be my laptop screen. But if you have a desktop computer, it would be whatever is your first monitor. If I just display my desktop for a moment here, and we go into, now it's different for the Mac, but on a PC, we're going to go into System and Display, and you'll see how these are labeled. So these are my two monitors here. Monitor 1, and if you press Identify, you'll see this little overlay that tells you which one it is that you're looking at. So you guys are looking at my primary monitor. You do have the ability to make a different monitor. So if I select number 2, I can actually, where is that? Make this my main display. So if I wanted to capture on my larger monitor, I could check this off. I won't do it right now. And then number 2 would become number 1, and number 1 would become number 2. I don't know what that would do while I'm live streaming, so I won't make that change right now. But I can tell you from experience that that is what happens. The other thing too, a lot of people get a little bewildered by software simulation. And I've got a 2-part tutorial on software simulation that I think explains it rather well. But I do want to show you guys one other thing. Let's return to the chat for a moment just to make sure I'm not dealing with any other questions here right now. No, I think we're good here. So we'll go back to desktop here. I'm just going to insert a blank slide here. And I'm just going to resize this window a little bit here. And we'll delete that first slide here. So software simulation is made up of, like sometimes what I struggle with, or what I struggled with when I first experienced software simulation was, what exactly was this magic that was happening? I didn't understand what was happening. And there's 2 things that essentially are happening. There's 2 types of captures. You're either creating a capture that your learners can interact with, or you're creating a capture where you're going to be showing your learners what to do. And so let's first of all deal with showing the learners what to do. So when you capture software simulation, there are basically 2 things that get captured in those simulation demos. The first one is mouse movement. So we're going to show our mouse on the screen moving around. How does that work? Well, in the simulation process, it captures it for you. But I want to show you that this is something that you can add to any slide. So if I go into Modify and select Mouse and click Show Mouse, it adds a mouse to my screen. Now, the first slide always has this 4-dot icon, which indicates that's where the mouse is starting from. And you can pick that wherever you wish to have it start from. And then, of course, you can select your mouse and you can customize it. You can make it larger. You can determine that this first click will be, let's make it even larger than it is here. the first click, you could actually make it a double click instead of a single click. And you can show the mouse click with a little bit of color, and that's basically it. Now, some people will create additional slides, and when they add a mouse to those additional slides, they're like, oh, well, why is it starting from here? I want to change it on this slide. You can't do that because it's going to start wherever your mouse ended on the previous slide. So I just want to point that out. The only other thing that you have in software simulation demo is simulating of typing in a text entry box. And how that's done is through this text animation. Now, there's a little bit of a problem with text animation in that there is only certain text animation types or effects that are available in HTML5. So if I have this sample text here, we'll leave it sample text here. I'll bump up the size to 30 points there just so it's real large on the screen here. So this will obviously show the aquarium effect, which is not what you want. The text animation that's used in software simulation is one of two that's available. There's typing text, and then there's typing text with sound. Personally, I'm not a fan of the sounds in Captivate, so I would just use the typing text effect. And what that does when it runs is it simulates someone typing out text. That's it. This is everything that's in software simulation demo. Mouse clicks and typing text. Now, if you're doing software simulation training or software simulation assessment, let's create a new blank slide for that, and we'll talk about that. There are two objects that you're going to be working with there. The first one, of course, is a click box, and that's under interactions. So, and this is what you're going to do with a click box. You're going to place a click box over top of whatever was captured on screen, and you might not show a success caption, but in all likelihood, you will show a failure caption and maybe a hint caption. Currently, they're the same here, but in other projects, I've changed their appearance. So that's it. And you would place these, whatever's appropriate for your software simulation. The hint simply is when you roll over the click box, and of course you would resize the click box to match whatever button was on that background image. The hint would only appear when your mouse rolls over it. The failure text is only really happening if you've got one click box on the slide and you've clicked almost anywhere else. If you have 4 or 5 click boxes on the slide, failure text won't show up because it'll recognize that there's multiple possible right and wrong answers, and then failure won't show up. But this is typically only one per slide here. And that's going to take care of the mouse action that we want people to do. We need you to click here, and then click here, and then click here. And of course, that will navigate to the next slide. And you can, depending on whether this is something that is part of a quiz or not, let's select the click box here. You'll either include it in a quiz, which therefore it's part of the assessment, or if it's just for training purposes, it won't be included in the quiz. The only other thing that is in software simulation is a text entry box. And similarly, we need them to fill out something or type out something, name, last name, address, phone number, things like that, as you're filling out these web applications or other software that you're training on. And then, of course, there's the appropriate items there. If there's no submit button, you might ask them to click on the next field, in which case I would change the submit button. I'd still have a submit button, but where is that? I don't do enough of this, unfortunately. yeah, I would, where is it here? Select the submit button, make it transparent, and then just delete the text there. So you're asking them, you know, fill out the first name and then click on the last name field. So you'd place that, and that's essentially your submit button. And that's going to take you to the next slide and so on. But really, all software simulation is these four basic objects. You've got your mouse, your sample text, your text animation, which is the typing in of stuff. And if you're asking them to perform the actions, click boxes and text entry boxes. And the background is whatever screen capture gets captured. That's it. That's the magic of software simulation. It's those four things. Or if you're just doing one type, those two things, whatever it might be. So, you know, if you're in a situation like one of my clients is where they don't have access to the tool, just ask your stakeholder or your subject matter expert to provide you all the screenshots of all the steps, and then you as the developer are just simply going to add these objects over top, you know, and change the font and the font size and stuff to match the tool. And that's basically it. And you can build some really cool interactive stuff that does some amazing things there. So let's go back to the chat window here. Hopefully, so let's see here. Let's look at Johnny's comments here. So the awesome JavaScript pop-ups video, geez, I sometimes regret some of my videos there. I don't know if that's like the best example there. It is a video by Paul. I have a file in HTML5 and I want to include it in my Captivate to achieve greater interactivity. For example, a game. I see what you're saying, Johnny. So that's not software simulation. I'm sorry, I completely missed I definitely got lost in translation there. So let's see here. I put a button at the top so that when the user wants to go back to the previous activity or next button, if he wants to continue, you can do it. But when I put these buttons in the upper layers over the web object, it overlaps and doesn't let So the thing about a web object, what a web object is really an iframe. And you really can't have layered objects in secure HTTP circumstances here. It's a little complicated. There is a way you can have that appear, Johnny. First of all, if you're using the latest version of Adobe Captivate, I don't know if that's still an issue or not, because interactive video, you know, is a solution to that problem as well. Let me show you something though. So Johnny, if you're trying to get something to appear over top of a web object, let me open up a blank slide here. I'll just share my desktop again here. And we'll just use a very simple example of a web object here. So let's just open up a web object. And, you know, if I was showing someone either a website or some HTML, I could put my own HTML in here. Interesting way to do that. Let's actually delete this. I'll show you a neat trick with HTML content here. So I'm going to open up a Word document. And let's just take a blank document here. And I'm just going to, actually what I'll do is I'll just grab some dummy text here. And we'll just, here's some random text that we can use here. This is a solution that I've seen actually someone else do where they've got a lot of text open it up, paste it into a Word document, and then save this as an HTML file instead of a Word document. So we're going to change that to a web page, like so. And we'll put that on my desktop for right now. Okay, so now it's an HTML document there. And I don't think I need anything in that folder, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to zip it up. So essentially I just have that HTML file. And when I drag in the HTML file that's been zipped up, it automatically creates that web object for me. And if there was, well, let's see if we can force it to scroll and show you one of the benefits of doing this. If I wanted to add a button that's going to appear over top for some reason, and let's just use this as a button, and the action will be to, I don't know, go to the previous slide, let's say. And let's move that up to the top there. I'll delete these slides because I don't need those. And we'll just preview this in HTML5 in browser. I think what's probably going to happen, yeah. So there's my web object with the HTML, and it's blocking that other button, even though in Adobe Captivate, you know, this is on top, and you can even see on the timeline, this is on top of the web object. So how do we deal with that? Well, let me close Captivate down. I'm not going to save this. Maybe I should have saved it. I'm going to right click on my Captivate icon, and you can't see this because I'm hiding my taskbar. I'm going to right click on my Captivate icon, then right click on the Adobe Captivate application itself, go to Properties, go Open File Location, okay? And then there's, it's opening up in a different window here. You'll see that there is a file, and let me just change the view here. The file I'm looking for is this one here, Adobe Captivate.ini. Usually you can't edit it from this folder itself because this is the system folder for your computer. But here's what I do. I right click on it and then drag it to my desktop and choose copy here. And now I'm going to right click on it and edit it, and it will open in Notepad. And this actually contains a number of things that are sort of the parameters of Adobe Captivate. The one we want to change is this one here. Use widget 7. So what we want to do, if we want to layer things on top of web objects, we're going to change that to 1. And I'm going to close this, save it to my desktop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this copy back in here. I'm going to have to give it permission because, again, this is a system file. So we're going to replace the file. So I need to provide administrator permission. So I'll hit continue. And now I'm good, right? So let's do this again. I'm going to click OK here, and I'm going to start Captivate. And we'll create a new project like what we did before. Just bear with me a moment here. We'll do a new blank project here. And let's just change this to a blank slide if there's one available on this theme. I don't like this new theme. There we go. And I'll just resize that. So like before, I'm going to just take this over here. We'll drag in my little HTML web object, and whatever it might be, it could be a game, or it could be something I've built in HTML. I drag it in, I'm good to go. And you could do the same thing with video. You can do the same thing with, what else can you do with this? You can also bring, what was I thinking of? I'm drawing a blank now. Adobe Animate files can come in the exact same way as well. So now I'm going to add that same smart shape, which I'll use as a button here. We'll just put that right over top, and we'll just bring that in, use as button. Again, you can see the button is on top of the web object. And now when I preview this in HTML5, it should, there it is, on top of the web object. So that works. So hopefully that's a solution you're looking for. Oh, when you include more web objects, it starts to fail. Well, I mean, you got to be careful with the number of web objects you're placing on a slide. I'm not sure. I know that solution works, Johnny, but if you're running into more complicated issues, maybe Captivate's just not capable of handling, things like that out. So the less likely the button will work. I don't know. I know that's been the sort of the workaround for those situations, so I don't know for sure, but I know now there's a drawback to doing that, is that when you turn that widget 7 option from 0 to 1, you may have problems if your LMS and your content store are two different URLs. There might be some problems there, but if you're just publishing straight up to a single LMS or a single web server, so long as you're not linking out to other sites, you might run into security errors and things like that, but for the most part, it should work. But again, I haven't tried it with all different scenarios, and I guess a lot depends, Johnny, on what sorts of stuff you're trying to put in web objects and how many web objects you have. And try it out, see if that works. If not, you might want to reconsider whether Adobe Captivate is going to be able to provide the solution that you're trying to achieve. I get communications every day. It used to be every week, now it's every day, of people wanting to do things in Adobe Captivate that are, I think, outside of the scope of the software. So, you at some point you have to say, is Adobe Captivate the right tool for this? If your job is to create pretty much standard e-learning and to do the types of things that we're building learning interactions to do typically, then it probably is. But I've certainly had people reach out to me and they wanted to build entire websites using Adobe Captivate. And while you can publish a Captivate course as a web folder with all the structure of a website and do all the navigation and stuff like that, it's not the best tool for that job. Like the best tool for designing websites might be something like Dreamweaver or Adobe XD or something like that, or hard coding it. What is the right tool for the right job is often a question that comes as well. Anyway, that's the hour. Actually, it's a little bit more than the hour, but maybe subtracting my technical issues up front. And no lights. I'm so sad I don't have my lights. But anyway, guys, thank you for participating today. And for those that are watching the recorded version. I'm going to start doing the live streams a little bit more frequently. I am literally overwhelmed. I mean, today's group seems to just be 2 people, but that's okay. But I am totally overwhelmed by the number of supporters, the number of YouTube channel members I now have is more than I ever had with Patreon, and the response has been tremendous. Um, so there is a definite need for, I think, these live streams. So I'm going to try to do them more frequently. I haven't decided if it's literally going to be weekly or not, but it's going to be more than what it was before. At the very least, it's going to be a couple of times a month, but it could be as frequent as weekly. And I think part of it will be based on, if I'm getting a lot of questions and there's a lot of answers that I need to provide, obviously a live stream's probably in order. On quieter months, sometimes you guys don't really ask a lot of questions, and therefore I might, a live stream might be kind of redundant or boring. But certainly, we'll have continued YouTube videos right up into the new year and certainly beyond. But I can tell you right now that there are about 3 or 4 videos already recorded, ready to come out. You guys will get them early, of course, because as a YouTube member, I like to give you guys the added benefit of getting a head start over the rest of the world with the latest Adobe Captivate tutorial. And of course, you get these opportunities to have the live sessions with me at least a couple of times a month, but maybe once a week. We'll see how it goes. I need ideas though, so feel free to send me a message through the comments or the chat of any of these live streams and let me know what you want to learn about. I'll do my best to include it. One last thing Johnny's asking there is a possibility to communicate an HTML file developed in Adobe Animate with Captivate. Yeah, in fact, you can totally bring in Animate files. They are considered, I'll just quickly go back to my desktop for a moment. And if we go into the media icon and select animation, you'll see that not only do you have, oh, I thought it was here. Where am I looking? Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong spot. Media, oh, sorry, HTML5 animation. And this will accept OAM or zip files that were published or the OAM files from Edge Animate. But either one will work and you can bring those in. There are some tips and tricks with that are probably a little bit beyond my ability, but it's definitely something that you can do. There's actually a really good guy when it comes to that sort of area there. Phil Cowsell. Let's see what we have here. He actually, if you look in the community tab on my YouTube channel, you'll find that I posted one of Phil's videos recently where he's talking a little bit about a bunch of different things. But he has a whole YouTube channel as well. You should check it out. I've met him a number of times, and I do consider him a bit of a friend now. And he's certainly the Photoshop, Adobe Animate guy when it comes to e-learning. He's the one that can probably answer those questions. And I'm willing to wager he probably has a video on YouTube, Johnny, about actually taking Adobe Animate. There are some things that he's told me that I've certainly forgotten at this point, that you got to keep these things in mind when you're bringing Animate files into Captivate. But it's certainly possible. There are definitely some tricks that you got to do. But check out that and see what you can get from there. Anyway, guys, I'm going to let you go for now, and we'll see you real soon. And let me know what you'd like to see in future videos. Any topics, any lessons you'd like to have covered. My weekly tutorials are great little 6-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute videos about one thing, but something maybe a little bit more detailed for the live streams is appropriate. Today was remediation. Next week, maybe it'll be, another Ask Me Anything session, which is fine. I like doing those. But if you have a particular topic in mind, let me know what it is, and we'll try to schedule that real soon. Talk to you soon, guys. If you thought this video was useful, please like and share with your colleagues. If you need help with your next e-learning project, hire me. My focus is to create effective e-learning that achieves your business goals. Visit my website at CaptivateTeacher.com, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel.